everybody. Thanks for joining us again. We are here, the three amigos, for Peterson Wealth Services Point of View. This is post-election 2024. And we're here, just wanted to send out some information, what we think is relevant, what we think is important for our clients and even other people who are out there in the world trying to put things together and understand how this election result may impact us in our economy, in our jobs, and of course, in the investment landscape.
And
so,
thank God it's over. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah,
all the anticipation, we didn't have to wait. We found out the night of. Let's move forward.
Yeah, that was nice to see it, the results end and kind of everybody's okay. Well, of course, now we're starting to see the animosity, the vitriol coming out of some platforms, but I guess that's to be expected no matter
who
wins.
It's going to happen either way, I think.
Yeah, I'd really like to see our country actually get behind him this time all the way around and see what can be done versus fight him every step of the way.
Well, maybe they are though, Bill, because I mean, this is the first Republican candidate to win the popular vote in 20 years. So maybe everybody is behind him. That's kind of, I saw that post. I think you sent it to me that there aren't any blue states. There's just blue cities.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, the vast majority of the states are red. Obviously, there are certain parts of states that you wouldn't think would ever vote for a Republican, but I mean, the results were way more one-sided than the polls indicated. As you recall, the polls showed Harris beating him in most of those battleground states, and that just wasn't the case. That just That shows you can't really trust the polls out there, guys, and on what's going on. Now, leading up to the election, and you guys know, maybe we've even mentioned this on a prior video, we started to take some positions in our portfolios that we felt would benefit from a Trump presidential victory. And we just felt like Trump had the momentum. The economy is not what the Democrats tried to portray it as, which, obviously the market is up and jobs are high. I mean, unemployment is low, is what I'm trying to get at. But what they miss, and this is the frustrating part for most working class Americans, what they miss constantly is what's called real wages. And when you have inflation that is far ahead of the wage growth, then you have a squoze consumer. You have that worker who can't pay the bills like they used to. So even though their wage might have went up, let's say they were making 100,000 and their wages went up to 125, but prices have gone up by 50%. So they're actually in a worse place. But the media, traditional media, just failed to recognize that. And I think that's what really was the biggest issue in this election.
Well, I think people, just like you said, are just looking at their situation and they're like, I'm done with this. And they voted with their wallets on a lot of it. And I know there were other issues that came up, but I think that was the overwhelming majority of people coming out that maybe changed their opinion and did end up voting for Trump. It was because of the economic conditions that we're in. I mean, we talk to our clients' kids all the time. This is coming up, and they can't even afford to buy a home right now, and they're making well into the six figures, and it's just tough for them to get out there and find that home for a family, and that's frustrating for people. I think that swayed a lot of the millennial votes that typically the Democrats dominate in, and this time I think it went the other way. And I also saw a report that the Hispanic vote was largely won by Trump this year.
I think Gen Z also was a big sway, my generation, because like you said, Shaun, it's hard for people to get by right now. And I think people my age, especially into your mid-20s, like they want to be able to buy a house at some point, and they're sick of what's been going on the last 4 years. So I think the younger generation and young men especially, they really showed up and they voted.
Yeah, they came out in full force. I don't know. I want to make sure that what we're saying here, you guys understand why we're saying these things. We're trying to find positives. We're trying to help people come together. We know there's a lot of division in the country, and we would hope that there would be less of that rhetoric. And honestly, the thing that disgusts me more than anything is the media. And the media creates this division because they like to. And so it's been going on for 8 years, ever since Trump came into the picture as running for president 8 years ago. He's been fighting that wall ever since. Impeachment hearings right off the bat. I mean, the first day he's in office, they start impeachment hearings. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars as a country, which is our taxpayer money, by the way, chasing a story that proved to be false in the first election. And if you're still believing in that Russia stuff, that boy, we need to have a conversation. That proved to be completely false and fabricated. So what we want to do is try to find ways to get through it. I mean, I know a lot of people hate Trump, and more people than not, I think, voted against him rather than for her. And so that's an interesting thought process to me, is that you could almost put anybody up there to run against him and people would vote for that person, no matter what their history is, no matter what their experience is. They're just voting against Trump. And it's interesting that the media can have that much impact, because you remember back in 2023, I made a couple of predictions in our semi-annual newsletter where I wrote my poem, and I actually predicted back then that Biden would not have the nomination. I just didn't feel like he had enough support. I felt like his policies were backfiring on him largely because they were just reversals more than anything. And I feel like at the time, Kamala had such poor ratings and really so absent in the public eye that I feel like there's no chance that she's going to be the nominee. But so I proved right on that Biden wouldn't be, but I was dead wrong about her. She actually received the nomination without any primary, without any votes. It was just, hey, slide Biden out, slide her in. And then the media did a masterful job of portraying her as somebody who was prepared and ready for that role. And I thought
Hold on. Did you say you were wrong?
Yeah,
and
I was wrong.
And it's on tape.
I did not realize how powerful the media was to change the public image of someone that quickly.
It's crazy, and it's social media too, and that's in our face 24/7. And my wife asked me the other night, like during the election, she's like, "Why is everyone so divided?" Like I didn't feel like it was this way when I was growing up and there was an election. And I said, well, I think it's because all this information is in your face all the time. And it's not like all the time factual information. It's throw gas on the fire information, and it just gets people so heated up. And then you see this divide. You can't base your investment decisions or your long-term financial plans on who's in the White House. And I would still say that today. However, there are sectors that we believe would perform better under a Harris presidency and what we think are going to perform better under a Trump presidency. Do you want to dive into those a little bit, Bill, so we can talk about that?
So what sectors do we think are winners? Well, I'm going to kick off. I think the obvious winners in this election with Trump being president are going to be those industries that currently have high levels of regulation, because he's already promised to cut regulations in a big way. And matter of fact, it's been floated that he's going to appoint Elon Musk to cut a whole bunch of regulations and actually agencies out of the government. He's actually on record saying he could cut $2 trillion out of the budget for
the deficit
this next year.
Yeah.
Yep. Which that's a pretty big deal, because we spent over $2 trillion more than we brought in last year. So let's talk about that. So the industries that we think might benefit are financials, of course. They're highly regulated. If we loosen up the capital requirements for banks and financial companies, they're going to have more earnings to the bottom line. Next, I think, is energy. Obviously, he's run on opening up drilling. He's talked about that at length, as getting the pipelines opened up and then drastically lowering the requirements for drilling companies seeking permits to drill. And I think that's going to happen almost immediately. So we're going to see a lot more activity in our energy development rather than importing or asking to get our oil from other countries. Somebody's got to drill for it. and the way they look at it is, why not be us? And then thirdly, I think manufacturing and industrials, I believe that there's two different sides to look at this tariff concept, but Trump's big on the tariffs to try to make things more competitive for our own companies. You got to give him credit for this, which is he is all about U.S. first. He's not soft on these foreign companies to come in and he thinks take advantage of us. Now, there has to be a certain balance in trade. We get that. I think he's just trying to make it harder for these companies to come in and compete with our own. So he's going to impose tariffs on those who want to sell products here in the U.S., and especially for companies that might be even based in the U.S., who might be thinking about manufacturing their products offshore. That's going to be really, really challenging for them under his leadership.
I would add one more on that, Billy, that I personally think will benefit, and I think you'll agree with this too. I think small cap companies will benefit, especially if we keep or even further reduce corporate taxes. And then the other thing to go along with the small cap theme is if banks are less regulated, they're able to lend more money more freely. And I think that benefits small caps as they operate on higher debt levels. So I like the small cap space.
Yeah, I think we've said that internally. We talk about small caps. We're trying to raise the allocation for clients. If you're out there listening and you don't really have any exposure to small and mid-sized companies, this be the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How about we jump into some of the industries that we don't feel like are going to benefit much and maybe have some additional challenges?
I think the world of healthcare is due to benefit, but as far as the financial sector go, I don't think that it's going to be a beneficial sector to be a part of. Just with the RFK ramifications that Trump is planning to put in place, leading a charge to hopefully decrease the health problems that we have in the country. I know that we have some unhealthy food problems, obesity problems, and RFK is planning to hopefully debunk some of those problems that we have right now.
Well, that could lead to higher regulations in the healthcare pharmaceutical type industry, which could dampen profits. So that's probably not a high flyer for us. I would say the healthcare space.
Yeah, I mean, just talked about how Trump's big on deregulation, but he's already on record saying RFK is going to have a big part in certain agency oversight, and RFK wants to completely redo the FDA, and he is adamant that there's corruption going on, underhanded deals, and these companies that manufacture our food are using chemicals to produce the food that are very unhealthy. I mean, it's crazy. We have all heard the ingredients that are in the same product, but one sold in Europe, one sold in America. And one in Europe might have 2 ingredients, the one in America might have 15 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. And Shaun, you even talked about going to where did you go? Italy, somewhere?
Italy
a few months ago. And
a few years ago. I haven't been on vacation for a while. So.
Oh my God!
Oh
Shaun,
boy, here we go.
On. You go on a vacation about every other week. But anyway,
I feel like I'm Trump right now. I'm getting attacked. Okay, with false information. Yes.
Well,
my point was when I did go to Italy, I looked around at the population, the people, because you guys don't maybe know this. People that are listening or watching, like as advisors, everywhere we go, we're looking at things from an economic stance, from an opportunity stance. Like, is there money to be made here? It's so weird, but. So I was looking at the population and watching, no one over there is overweight, obese, and all they eat.
No one?
Okay, sorry. Here we go again. I'm getting attacked.
Come on, Shaun. Facts are facts.
Very few people.
Okay.
I notice were overweight or obese, and all they eat is pasta, wine, bread. And I think personally, it's because it's just real ingredients. So their bodies aren't messed up like we see a lot here. And we talked about this on an earlier I think it was one of our podcasts, saying how much money could be saved if we just had a healthy population. We weren't so reliant on doctors and
drugs
and Medicare costs through the roof. And, my insurance plan is $1,400 a month, and I feel like I'm just paying for everybody else. It's insane.
It's just a domino effect, right? I mean,
Yeah.
potentially, what if it all starts with the ingredients in our food, and then we have to have drugs to help alleviate the diabetes and the obesity problems, and then, of course, we have to have insurance to take care of the doctor bills and the hospital visits. And who's paying for all that? I mean, it's money circulating around, and it maybe could be redeployed into better areas if we just stop and start doing things a little bit differently with our food intake. I'm excited about that, guys. I really
Let me take a sip of my Coke Zero.
Coke Zero. There you go.
It's probably got a bunch of terrible things in it, so I'm being a little hypocritical, but point remains. Coke used to be like corn syrup and sugar and some carbonated water, and now I'm looking at the ingredients. It ain't what it used to be.
We're all starting to pay a little more attention to what we're consuming, from the beverages, food. So I really think it's important. Obviously exercise too, but so the healthcare part with Cade mentioning could have some additional regulations if we start seeing that things are not going the way they should be, and we've given them too much of a free rein. Healthcare could face some challenges, looked at it through a different lens. Another industry I think could face some challenges is the home builders. Okay. I really think, like you mentioned earlier, that the way prices are right now, and without additional wage increases, and with potential inflation still remaining and interest rates still high, I think it's very difficult for the young generation to buy homes. And I think that puts further pressure on the home builders for the next several years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right in that. And I mean, what's our outlook? I know we're excited outlook for the equity markets overall. I think this is going to be a very good economic environment. I think a lot of things are going to change. People are going to get in a better position. I see earnings going up in those sectors we talked about, but just overall, we're excited. And just the vibe we've been getting over the past, call it 3 or 4 years, is people have money to invest, but they were nervous to do so. And we're seeing that record amount of money held in money market accounts. I think that money finds its way back into the equity market because, we're going to find out today if the Fed cuts rates. I think they would likely do. And I think that trend likely continues. Now, if it doesn't, I'd say that's the one thing we're concerned about in this office is if the Fed has to revert back to either pausing or hiking rates because inflation's not under control, I think that spooks the markets. And that
honestly, I think that's a more likely scenario. I think I'm giving that about a 60% probability that sometime late 2025, we have completely different Federal Reserve policy being considered. It's funny how last year, this time, everyone was anticipating dramatic rate cuts. Remember?
8
I mean, we were going to have substantial number of rate cuts. And so far, we've had the one at 50 basis points and maybe one today, potentially at 25 basis points. So that being said, the bond market's telling us something completely different because rates have gone almost straight up for the last 2 weeks. And that's signaling something out there that is not being forecasted in the Federal Reserve landscape. So
what will be frustrating with that for me is Trump will be president and maybe we go through a recession, everyone's going to go his fault. Yeah. And I would say, hold on a second. How did we get there? We didn't get there in a 1-year period. It was what was happening before then. And I know no one wants to hear it. Everyone's sick of the C word, but the COVID word and that and how we handled it and printed all this money, told everyone to stay home, halted growth, printed money. Hello, inflation happened because of that. The dollar is not worth what it was,
and just extra spending on things that potentially should have been reconsidered. A lot of spending, and it's not going. A lot of it's not going toward our own country. It's going to foreign countries. So, I mean, we have some issues that we're trying to clean up. The media. Just let me close on this. Final industry that I think is not going to do well, I think, is the clean tech and green energy industry. For obvious reasons, I think that's going to be look past a lot of those regulations that have been in place are going to be lifted from that standpoint, and all the clean tech ideas and companies that might be off off the table for the time being. We can get into all that, but I don't want to because it's too divided. Too many people have very um, deep emotions
Passionate.
around that. Yeah, they're passionate
Yeah.
about that subject. And I find it interesting, though. There's a lot of, throughout history for the last 100 years, and I've collected a lot of this, people that have predicted certain things with the environment, with the climate change concept. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was about climate. It was about cooling. You know, the Earth was cooling. It was the biggest concern was we were going to head the ice age again. Tons of articles, tons of guys supposed to be very smart in that area predicted it, and none of that came true. And then it kind of shifted to global warming. And, you know, we still have Al Gore cruising around on his jet, talking to various people in various economic
forums.
forums.
Do you know who Al Gore is?
No.
Okay, you're not missing out.
Thanks, Cade.
No, I don't.
Anyway, he's the global warming guy that kind of initiated some of those things. And then it became John Kerry. He's in charge now. He is big on this. And they changed the wording, by the way. So it went from cooling to then warming to now, we don't know, but it's change. It's climate change. So they've got you on both sides. No matter what happens, they're going to say, I told you this was it. You know,
Point being, we don't think those industries do well.
I mean, it's all about, they want to blame it on people. So the only way out is to eliminate a whole bunch of people. And I don't see anybody volunteering to take themselves out or their families out of the equation. Like, hey, we're going to be the first to die here so we can cut down on the population.
Well, we're losing a lot of, not that they're dying, but the U.S. is losing a lot of people that are moving to Canada or Europe, Billy.
Shaun, they're still on planet Earth, bud.
Okay? I know that, but I'm just saying, like, hey,
I know
they
don't like what happened, but you know, do you guys believe in dinosaurs? Were dinosaurs real?
I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, Shaun, there's bones in all these museums. Were they real, or is that all manufactured fake bones?
Could be. What is real anymore?
I mean, were dinosaurs here or not? I'm curious.
Hey,
yeah, we're getting off the rails.
Are
now.
birds monitoring systems put in by the government? Have you ever heard that one? Get Isaac back.
My point is, what killed dinosaurs is supposedly the Ice Age. And I'm just curious how that Ice Age started. Was it carbon footprint? Was it man-made? Was it too much oil in the industry, manufacturing going on? I'm just wondering. I'm just throwing it out there for, curiosity. Curious minds want to know. I always like to ask deep questions. So, yeah, might be off topic a little bit, but that's one of the industries that I think is going to have some struggles.
Billy, close it up. Close it up with where we're going from here.
Where we're going from here is the economy is going to have fits and starts. It's going to have still some issues to deal with inflation. Trump has his ideas. I have certain reservations about him from a personality standpoint. I don't really love how he speaks, but he's a New Yorker. He talks the way he talks. I really do like a lot of his policies. I think that he is pro-growth. I think he is pro-America. And how can you not like that? How can that be something that you're going to rally against? I understand everybody, media on the mainstream media, they constantly raise he's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a misogynist, but they don't have anything really to back that up. That's just the rhetoric that they want to throw out there. I think the country needs to unite. I think we need to try to get behind it and try to understand where we're going, which is most likely tax cuts, most likely trying to have pro-growth. The issues I think could still develop are fighting through inflation and potentially even increasing inflation again because of some of these things that are still yet to phase out. So that's what we're watching for very closely.
One of the things, sorry, I was just going to say, one of the things I'm real hopeful for that he's mentioned that he wants to do is to cut the federal budget and hopefully lean towards reducing our national debt a little bit. I'm hopeful for that. I know that it gets dumped on me all the time. You guys say your generation's screwed because you're going to be paying off the debt one day, but I hope he can start doing that. He had plans to do it in his previous term, but he said due to COVID, he had to veer off of that path. But I am hopeful that we can start to lower that national debt by a little bit with the budget cuts.
Yeah, the one issue I see is if we cut the deficit, we're spending less, and less spending leads to less economic activity. I understand and I agree with that. It needs to happen. It's like a household that needs to pay off their credit cards eventually. They know just have to, it's a little painful. But I would rather our country go through a little bit of pain and cut some of this stuff, the spending that we feel like has led us to this area. Deal with it. I was going to say, I don't care who is president. I think there's going to be some challenges ahead to try to get us out of this mess. This wasn't created overnight. This was created over a number of years. It started quite a long time ago, actually, but it's just gotten out of hand. So that being said, guys, any final thoughts on post-election America?
Excited to move forward. Excited the election's over. I'm very, very bullish looking forward on things, but yes, there's never a blue sky. There's always challenges out there, but I think we've got someone in place that can handle those challenges and hopefully unite us as Americans and we all benefit and prosper from it.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. This was Peterson Wealth Services Point of View. This is how we feel. Call us if you have any questions or thoughts. Take care out there, guys.